Alrighty, how's it going, everybody? I'm here to make another video. For those who don't know, my name is Mark. I call the channel Mark's Musicology Euphorium. Musicology Euphorium. If you are new to the channel, definitely subscribe. Hit the bell when you want to see any more videos that I post. Definitely write some comments and definitely share the video and give me a thumbs up and all that. If you like, especially if you like the content. Now, if you can't, the video's gonna be pretty lengthy, so if you can't stay for the entire video, I totally get it. So, without further ado, I've been seeing a lot of people making videos about how the industry is dead and so forth, and I think they're confusing the industry with the business, the music, and then some people don't make videos about the music business being dead. The business is like anything else. Business is where money is being exchanged. The industry is a career field. The career field is alive and well. Now, people, how people are getting into the industry and how people are, what's the best way I can describe? And how acts are and the change in the music and genre, and how there's more hip hop or there's more EDM music versus traditional rock or whatever. How that's just inevitable how music changes, because you can't stop what people like. Even if you're in a certain genre and you're mad and pissed off at the industry and calling the industry dead or music is dead because people don't like your style of music anymore, you're the one that's gonna be mad at the industry. The industry itself is kind of like K-pop or Korean pop music, Korean popular music, right? K-pop is a very popular thing going on in Korea. They don't care if if you're a rock player and you're mad at because people aren't buying rock or whatever. They're doing very well. It's kind of like the guy that made a Run Them Gundam style. That guy, he don't care. So you got a lot of these people in certain genres of music mad because they thought their certain genre of music. It's kind of like with people that thought that big band was going to stay around. We're talking about big band probably pretty much died around the 50s. But you had all these big band, we're talking about the Duke Ellington and the Lawrence Welk and all these big band players. They thought that was going to last forever. People always think a certain genre of music. The same thing with like funk music, or disco. People that made disco thought disco was going to be around forever. They're not going around complaining that the music industry is dead. The music industry is just changing. Now, what's died or changes tremendously is the business side. Simply because the internet and technology and the digital and downloading and streaming on us have basically changed the old system of people buying CDs, cassettes. People still buy it. They just don't buy it nowhere near. You can look at physical sales, but that's just inevitable. That's just life changes. It's like people that used to make payphones. All the people that used to make payphones aren't complaining because that people don't make payphones anymore. Because like, why should I make a payphone when everyone got a cell phone? I'm not mad at talking about the payphone business has died. It's that's that. So anyhow, moving on. So we're confusing the industry with the business. The business side have changed tremendously to a point where it looked like it's died. When actually the music, the way people make money has changed. So I got a lot of notes here, and it really, believe it or not, now with home recording studios and DAWs and everything else, I call them VRSs, virtual recording studios, right? It's basically a recording studio in the box, right? Everyone's doing this, and it's kind of like when they call it a laptop, like a laptop isn't a computer. It's almost like it's a insult when really a laptop really is a computer. It's just a portable computer. It's just laptop, because you used to sit on your lap. A laptop. So, it's kind of like it's almost people want to sit there and say, well, now they can just do music with Pro Tools and a laptop. Like they're trying to be condescending, like it's a belittling thing, right? Not realizing a laptop is just a portable and not a big gigantic tower that's non-portable with a studio monitor and all that, or an all-in-one computer monitor. It's just a it was just a portable computer. Just like your laptop, your Android or iPhone is a portable computer. But anyhow, so you got people that, it's always been, the biggest thing is you have this person, they're an artist, a person with some talent, whether they're a musician or singer or rapper, whatever. It's a person that got some talent. And then, what happens is that people exploit that talent, and a lot of greed, and how the whole system of the music business industry exploits that to a point where it makes like this person who thinks, because they know that this person with talent as a musician or an artist or a singer, whatever, a rapper, whatever, they believe that their talent can take them to this fame and stardom that's going to make them a lot of money and become rich and famous, because they've seen it through the system that we've been seeing for the last 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years, right? If you always see artists on TV, artists going to these award shows, red carpet treatment, they look like they live in these lavish mansions, and they just lifestyle, and everyone wants that because like, man, my talent. It's the same thing thinking, I'm going to be this next superstar athlete. Like, I'm going to be the next Michael Jordan or whatever, or the next Kobe Bryant, rest in peace, LeBron James or whatever. These superstar athletes, when really it's less than 1% actually get to that level. The numbers are astronomical amount of people that go to college for sports and only not even make it to the pros. So most people make it to college, but a lot of people, that's as far as it goes. A lot of people don't even make the draft or get a chance to get into the pros. But anyhow, getting back to, it's the same thing with the one percenters. I would say, I wrote a note here. I don't know where I put it. Let me see, because I got a lot of information, a lot of stuff that I wrote down. I was making notes. I was making a lot of notes. So I got a lot of notes because I got a lot of stuff to talk about. Okay, so going with what I was saying here about the record label, the record or the music industry versus the music business. The business was where money is made. People keep saying the industry is dead. No, the business side of it is dead, or the old system have died. The music have changed. People don't make money. When I'm talking about the physical hard sales of vinyls, CDs, cassettes, physical purchasing sales of product like it used to be. It hasn't made that kind of billions of dollars since the early 2000s, because the internet has blew up, and with streaming and YouTube and the exposure to all this access is what changed the business model, because people have access now. The only way you could have access then was to physically buy it or to physically go see it, meaning artists, performers, musicians, bands, whatever, right? The internet changed that. So there's basically the big industry, and then there's the small industry. The big industry will be tied to like record contracts and deals, A&R people, RII, Billboard, Grammys, stuff like that. That's the big industry. Record sales, artists, radio promotions, the stuff is on the radio and video. And the small industry was always either, this is where you call it a starving musician, right? Where either they were performing on some sort of street corner with a cup and they got their guitar or saxophone or whatever, and they just they're playing, people drop coins in their little cups or whatever. Or the small industry would be like small local clubs, parks or whatever in public. And 90% of people getting into this industry never really make it past the small industry. The 10% would be people to get record deals, you know, with record labels where they can get on the radio, video, award shows. They're performing at the awards, the Grammys. They got music videos and all this. And on top of that, and that's only probably 10% of the 10%. Because 90% of people that get signed never even get released. Their music never get released. A lot of people get their stuff, they get a record label and a record deal, and they get signed, and after that they go make the records, and then they present it, and the record label does like, now we're not going to release that. And if they don't, you know, whatever, and they run out of advance money, and they can't keep trying to come up with better stuff that the record label may want to, because their energy is focused on key artists that are already making them money or started making them money, then a lot of times they'll get dropped or shelved or dropped. And it's like, man, I got a record deal, but then before you know it, now they don't have a record deal. It's crazy. But anyhow, I was going back to the old, I wrote here in some notes. So it boils down to a hit record, because a hit record is exposure to your audience. Meaning, I always hear these when I watch these videos. When I watch these videos, this is probably the worst advice videos I ever see, because it's like the lottery. Everything when it comes to making music is a risk for your audience to hear. There is no guarantee that the audience is going to like what you put out. More, you know, in other words, you could put out music and majority of the people may not like it. If the people that do like it, it may not have enough impact for you to move to stardom. And that's happened. That's why we call them, you know, it's kind of like with one-hit wonders or people that got on the charts but they never could get in the top 50, or they can never get to the top 20 of the Billboard. And Billboard is a sales charting monitoring system. You know, so Billboard monitors the sales, which is determined on who's buying and streaming and listening to these artists as they move up the charts. The more people are buying and so forth, the more they can move up the charts, which means is also connected with the RIA, which stands for the Recording Industry Association of America, the RIA. And based on how many, you know, based on how many units are being sold, that's how people can get a certified gold or certified platinum or double platinum or 4 times platinum or diamond award. That's the accolades that you always see when you go to recording studios or artists' homes or producers' homes or who's ever involved to get this, you know, the engineers, they get these awards. They get a copy of the same award with their involvement with this artist, producer, the engineer, the record label. They all get a copy of this gold or, you know, or platinum album based on record sales. That's how you get the award, is certified record sales. And Billboard monitors that because every record has a UPC IRSC code attached to it, which I'm going to talk about shortly. So the old gatekeepers is, you know, that's the reason why with the old gatekeepers were radio, video, and record labels, publishing companies, and tour sites and concert stadiums, or people that can host concerts, you know, and tour sites like Radio City Hall and all that. And you know, if you can get on like TV for like late night and all that. So the gatekeepers kept 90% of the people out, because the only way you can get through there is to get on radio and video and record, you know, that was through a record label, and which is the big industry. Only 10% of people that try to do this in music can get a record deal. So a lot of times it don't even have to do with talent. A lot of times it has to do with timing and exposure. A lot of times, because you got a lot of times when people get record contracts, they got the exposure, they got the attention, and happen to be, that's why we said be in the right place at the right time. So you got you have the big industry, and sometimes that can happen with record labels, and the record labels are not always major record labels. We got independent record labels. The difference between an independent record label and a major record label is money. Most independent record labels don't have as much money as the big record labels. So it's kind of like a small little credit union versus a major bank like Citibank. They have billions of dollars versus this little small credit union maybe only have a few million. That sort of deal. So the independent record labels can't give artists the kind of accolades and advances and all that like the big labels could, but the risks are higher with with those record labels. Anyhow, so with the old gatekeepers, on the radio side, you had terrestrial radio for the most part, and you have what they call protective. You have reporting, and then you have non-reporting. And reporting radio stations would report. What they would do is they would report the rotation of the music. And around before, they signed this thing in the 90s, allowing for radio stations to start being bought up by all these corporations that start controlling radios, versus the old radio system. The old radio systems with radio stations had the free reign to play what they wanted to play, and they would have program directors that would indicate what they would play. That's why the radio stations at that time could do what they call, jam it or slam it, rock it, or drop it, hit or miss type of things. And they would do it on certain days to promote fresh new independent artists or unknown artists. But most of the time, the old system, part of that was, when you used to have major payola going on, that was the influence of, these radio stations, because radio stations really didn't make their money from radio, from playing artists. They made their monies from ads. And how they got their ads was, it was based on who's listening to the radio. Because the people would, the radio, all these ad companies would come in and say, okay, all these companies that would buy advertisement time would come in and say, okay, hey, how much does it cost to get some advertisement time for your radio station? And they would have, prime time, versus certain, most people were asleep between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. So, and that would be more target for more unknown artists, but they didn't want unknown artists to take up their prime time spots. Radio stations would also do like talk shows, maybe from 6 in the morning to 9 in the morning. You have, these star talking or whatever, or, whatever news, or they would, whatever they would have, they would program, and then they would have their broad listening artists probably be from 9 a.m. to about 5 a.m. because most people would listen to radio at work or whatever. They have the radio playing, and then of course, because they got to pay their bills, because that's what paid the bills for the radio stations, so they would play so many songs, and then they would have to have, like, let's say 50 minutes in the hour, they would play all these songs, and then they would have to have 30-minute or 1-minute spots or whatever for these local independent businesses that pay for business time. But a reporting station would give out a broadcast reporting port. The national, it's a lot of, we're talking about the National Station of Broadcasting. But anyhow, they would do all these, like for our group, A Different Taste. These would be the radio station. They would have what stations were rotating how many times a day on certain, for the song. Like our song was, For the Love of You and Make a Move and all that. So they would, what stations were rotating, light rotation, heavy rotation. And they would tell we're rotating 5 times a day or 10 times a day or 12 times a day or whatever. And then you would get these broadcasting reports, song activity reports, and which cities were, rotating them. You would get these reports. But anyhow, moving on. So anyhow, so going back to without saying the old gatekeepers, and then of course with the radio, if you can get a spot on the radio, because not every artist can get spots on, because you're talking 7,000-8,000 radio stations. So you had promoters to try to solicit as many, there was regional, for example, let me go back to, you would have let's say for example, you would have like the Mid-Atlantic region, the South region, the Mid-East region, the Midwest region, the Southwest region, and so forth. And these will be different cities within these regions that would pick up artists, on the radio. But anyhow, I don't want to spend too much because it's so much information to this. So let's say, so where does all this begin and so forth? So we talking about the radio, and then the gatekeepers with video. We're talking about BET, MTV, VH1. And then of course, because those were the two biggest ways an artist that's signed to a record label can get their exposure. Because the people, it's like with my video now on YouTube, the people that watch my video, YouTube, what's great about YouTube is it allowed for independent, unknown people to get exposure to whatever their topic is on their with their and some people's channels are so popular that they have 10,000, 100,000, a million subscribers. And then like my channel is a small channel. Even though I got over 3,000 subscribers, not all 3,000 subscribers watch my channel. Some people subscribe, stick around for a little bit, then they just never unsubscribe. So that's why sometimes I only have 100 views, 200 views, or whatever. But excuse me. So you got the radio and the video that was the old system, the old gatekeepers, because with the radio and video and the record releasing, it would allow the artist to then can get their stuff distributed in like CD stores, major distribution outlets like Walmart, Target, Best Buy, when CDs were available then. But as we move forward with the internet, downloading and pirating, that changed the old system game. We talk about Napster, BearShare, LimeWire, and all that. All these file sharing software companies basically killed the record sales business. So now that people don't have to buy physical, because now they can get access it through the internet. Now that's what made people feel that they shouldn't have to buy, because they have access to it. And so anyhow, let me try, because I'm trying to see how I'm organized do this video. So let's start with the whole thing. Let's start from the beginning of this whole thing. Okay, so you got an artist who wants to perform, so they want to perform. They got talent, so they want to start performing for people. But also this artist, excuse me, can be a songwriter. They write their own songs. People got their own ideas or whatever. Well, let's talk about songs, because the most confusing thing about songs is a song, then there's music. And when I mean music, there's instrumental music, and then there's music with words, lyrics, someone singing all this, And the music itself is just an arrangement, right, of an idea. So the most confusing portion of this whole thing when we listen to music is we say, man, I'm listening to this song. When actuality, you're listening to a recording. The recording is an arrangement of a song. The song itself is a composition with lyrics or without lyrics, right? That's the confusing portion. So some people say, well, when I'm listening to music, yeah, I'm listening to songs. No, you're listening to music. You're listening to music about songs. And I would sit there and say songs kind of derive from, if you are a spiritual person, if you go and I hate to throw the Bible, but this is kind of like, it's kind of related. It sounds, where did I do with my phone? Oh, never mind. Okay, I'm not gonna take anyone to church on this. Like I said, bear with me. This is a long video, but I'm trying to explain it all. Okay, so if you go and you think about it, let me see, where's it at? Get out of there. I'm gonna go. Okay, I'm gonna open up the Bible. You don't have to be a Christian or a believer or anything like that. I'm just trying to show you how this relates. If I go to the Old Testament and I go to the book of Psalms, right? And I'm just going to go, okay. Psalms, right? And let's pull up a psalm. A writing in the Bible, right? Okay. As an example, like in Psalm 66, right? Now, like I said, this is not church, so don't click off the video for these. I'm just trying to show you a relation here. Psalm 66:1. Make a joyful noise unto God in all ye lands. Sing forth the honor of his name. Make his praise glorious. Say unto God, how terrible art thou in thy works. Through the greatness of thy power shall thy enemies submit themselves unto thee. So forth. And all the earth shall worship thee, and all shall sing unto thee. They shall sing to thy name. Salah. Okay, I'm going to stop there. Okay, that's a psalm. That's Psalm 66 in the Bible. That's a psalm. That is related to a song. So the difference between me reading that and someone singing that is now I've taken what I've read and made it into a melodic structure. You understand what I'm saying when I say that? So let me pull that back at. So if I went back and go back to that same thing and says, instead of me reading, say, make a joyful noise unto God in all the lands, I would say, I could sing it. Make a joyful noise unto God, all ye lands, right? And a lot of times when we start doing that, we're humming or hymning, right? Us in where we get hymns, right? So we're singing these words. So what you're doing is you're singing the song. Just like you would be singing the psalm. So I'm trying to relate this to songs. So a lot of people, when they confuse this, when they say, when they hear music, yeah, we call it a song, just like we call the music business the industry. But really, a song and the singing of the lyrics of that song are two different things. This is the reason why you have two different copyright forms that you must fill out. A PA form and a SR form. This is the reason why that's two forms and not one. Okay? And the reason being is because a song itself, when someone comes with a song, when it comes to copyright, a lot of times when you register your song with the Library of Congress, you're protecting yourself for later portions of the case. The litigation for court needs to come into play. So you have it registered, your song, with the Library of Congress, then it's easier to fight versus, even though technically if you write something on a napkin, you record it on a video, you record it with a tape recorder, how are you recording? You just record it. It's automatically copywritten. It's automatically copywritten. Which is going to get into rights. And this is why this is important, because this is how part of the business screwed people based on screwing people out of their rights. And this is the shady part of the business side. What I'm saying here is this: when you fill out a copyright form, whenever someone comes up with a song, they're just coming up with a lyric or a composition. That's the song, not the music that's being recorded that you hear. That's not the song. The music that you're hearing is a sound recording of an arrangement about the song or composition, about the composition or the lyric. Whenever someone write down words, that's why I used the Psalm in 66 as an example. The words, a psalm versus a song. We're talking about basically the same thing. A composition is a structure of a song. It's a composition. So someone can come up with an idea, the composition, the idea. And it could be a melodic idea. It could be a melodic idea written through melodic or lyrics, which is written but by words. Like, I got a song, I'm gonna write down these lyrics to these songs. So that's why they would call it songwriters. I'm gonna write down this lyric / composition idea. So you're writing down a song. It's expressive. That's what makes it so complicated. So if you got a lyric or a composition or melody idea, whatever, that's the composition. The melody of it, whether it's instrumental being played by an instrument, or if it's being played by, or if it's being melodically through an instrument to express the composition, or is using lyrics, words to express the composition melodically. The melodies is that's the copyright portion. That's what's protected. It's kind of like I wrote this note down versus protected versus non-protected when it comes to copyright protection. You got copyright protection versus non-protected. Non-protection will be like sounds and tone. That's why you can buy a keyboard or guitar or a rhythmic instrument like congos, bongos, and things like that, and you cannot be sued for copyright infringement on that, simply because you can't copyright sounds and tones. But what is protected is composition arrangement with or without words. Composition arrangement would mean like melodic structures. Like you take that tone and you create a melody with it. That's what's protected. So it doesn't matter if I go da 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 or London Bridge is falling down. That's a melody. That's what's protected. This is the reason why sampling can get you in trouble. You can't get in trouble for sampling tones. It's like if I took a keyboard patch, if I took electric piano keyboard patch and sampled it from my Sonic and put it on my Triton, that's not copyright. I can't get in trouble for sampling that tone. I can get in trouble for sampling the melody that I used that tone to make. So if I took that tone and created a melody, that's copywritten. That's why when you take samples, this is why sampling can get you in trouble, because it's not the tones of the sample, it's the melody of the sample. Because the tones themselves are not really memorable, the melodies are. This is the reason why when we talk about hit records, the reason why a hit record is a hit record, because a melody can stick and it can become psychologically stuck in someone's head that they can't get it out of their head. Man, I love that melody. Man, I love that melody. When someone loves a melody so much, it becomes a hit. They love that's what makes it a hit. It's kind of like melody. It's like, whether it's a rap or a, whatever the case may be. That's what makes people like it as a hit, because they love the melody of it. And this would even be boils down to the arrangement. So going back to what I was saying about the PA form, this is the reason why I was saying this is the confusing part that a lot of people, when we call songs, man, I got this great song. You got a great composition and lyric, but then you say, well, I need to put music to it. So when someone says so you have a composition or a melody idea, it's a composition. And if you want to make lyrics to be, that's why that's why lyrics and composition are interchangeable. So you need to fill out a PA form for your composition. And this is where it gets tricky when it comes to split sheets and all that, because you want to know who's all contributing to that melody. Did you come up with the composition lyric all by yourself, or did you have help with it? If you have help with it, you need to do split sheets and everything else. This is where it gets into the recording portion, and for copyright purposes, because the copyright is everything. This boils down to the sound recording, the mechanical rights, publishing, everything's based on this copyright. This is why they talk about the copyright, because the copyright is about author ownership. The author/owner. Author and owner are interchangeable. It means who's the author or who's the owner, who's the creator of this work. This is the reason why articles, pictures, creations can be copywritten. If you take a photo with your camera of something, you are the copyright owner of that photo. And this is the reason why people can't just use photos that with them. That's why a lot of times you see books and they'll say photographed by such and such. They can't own that photo. They don't own it if they took it from a source. Now, if they took the picture themselves, they can say this, photo by myself. If they, but you can't take some, because the photo's copyrighted. There's a lot of copyright law is one of the biggest things that there's a lot of things that you should be. I hope a lot of people are taking notes to this. So the PA form is the composition and the lyrics, the melody idea or the lyrics. And then when it's time to take that melody and lyrics and composition, I need to put it on some listening form, meaning we need to record it. If you record it, and it doesn't matter if you record it in a home recording studio or a commercial studio, it becomes a sound recording. That's the listening portion. When you're listening to music, you're listening to a sound recording of a song. This is the complicated part of it. So if you're going to record this composition lyric idea, you are now creating a sound recording. So now you have to fill out a copyright form for that, an SR form. So if you go, that's why when you download a SR form or a PA form, you need to download both, unless you get and this is where publishers and record labels get involved when it comes to contracts and everything else, because there are publishing deals and there are record label artist deals or contracts. So the recording artist versus a songwriter is usually going to be a songwriter usually can have a contractual agreement with a publisher. So a publishing company will usually sign the publishing contract to say this person comes up with great lyric composition song ideas. And sometimes when the person that's the songwriter may create the melodies with their own gear, a guitar, piano, an entire arrangement, the whole entire arrangement could be, so they can create an arrangement. Prime example would be I Feel For You I feel for you. You know I love you. That song was actually written by Prince. So when Chaka Khan did it, she had to get a license to recreate another sound recording and a different arrangement version of that song. This is where licensings come into effect under publishing, but that'll be a little bit, I'll talk about that in a little bit. So anytime you want to recreate someone else's song, music, and create your own arrangement, you have to get a license. But the sound recording, once you get the license, the sound recording, the rearrangement of someone else's song becomes your sound recording. So the original I Feel For You, made by Prince, because he wrote it. So now, when royalties come into play, even though I Feel For You became real popular by Chaka Khan, the song, even though that song became real popular that Chaka Khan redid, the payment for royalties still, she still can get performance royalties for that song being performed on the radio, or she's performing it live in concert or whatever. But the PROs are still going to pay Prince because he wrote the song. Now, Prince got paid double for writing that song when he originally released it in the 70s, because not only did he write it, he was the artist that performed it. So he got 2 royalties for that. So whenever the song was being played on the radio or whatever, he would get a royalty check for that. But then when he performed it for live, then he would get a check for performing it. This is how an artist can be a double player. They can be a songwriter and an artist. Some artists are just performers. So a lot of times songwriters would have publishing deals. And recording artists, when you get a record deal, a lot of times people, this is why I said this talent comes into play. A lot of times some people can have talent enough to write songs, but not have enough talent to be a performing / recording artist. So they might change it from, offering you a recording artist contract deal to a publishing deal. Some people may be offended by that because they may feel they're just as a good singer as all the rest of them out there, but the record labels may not feel that way. But anyhow, that's down the road. But anyhow, so the master recording, once you say a recording artist goes and start recording songs in a recording studio, and the engineer finally gets everything recorded, gets everything mixed, and prints off the 2-track master, and it comes back from being mastered at a mastering company. The record labels, how they did it was whenever a deal was offered to an artist, they put it under contract that your contract, even though you're signing as a recording artist, you're getting a contract to record music for us. Listen to what I'm saying again. An artist would get a contract to say we're going to give you, basically in it boils down to this. We're going to give you a recording contract deal to record music for us. Meaning that whatever you record, we're going to own. It's the same when you have a person that writes articles for a newspaper. The newspaper still owns the article. Even though the person wrote the article, they don't own the article that they wrote. They're writing it for someone else. They're under a contract for work for hire. And that's how these recording contracts are written most of the time when you get a record deal. This is the reason why most artists complain about not owning their masters. They did not realize they signed a work for hire contract. So everything that you were doing and recording in the recording studio, you don't own. Most people thought that they owned their own music. This is where these recording contracts can really, really get flaky and shady. So because of that SR form, So what would happen is, because it's all based on reputation, no matter how good your talent is as a musician, singer, rapper, whatever, your reputation is, you don't have the reputation of this business. It's kind of like all the mega stars that you see today or you heard about in the past did not start that way. Almost all stars have started from nowhere and worked their way up to where they are now. Michael Jackson was not Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson was the Jacksons with his brothers first. They were unknown from Gary, Indiana in the 60s. Michael Jackson didn't really blow up until about 10 years later. Beyonce was not Beyonce, even though she started doing talent shows and all that when she was a teen. And she didn't get big enough until she, with the group Destiny's Child. Beyonce became Beyonce later on after Destiny's Child. But it took Destiny's Child to get, so Beyonce didn't start immediately making stardom. Same thing with Janet. Janet didn't start off as Janet. Janet started, Janet was Penny on Good Times. And before she became Janet, every star has worked their way up. Like Luther Vandross was singing backgrounds for like David Bowie and all that. And every artist started like that. Now, some artists became brand new artists, and there are fluke situations where, like the Beatles or Mariah Carey, where they get in the industry as an unknown and immediately blow up. But that only happens probably about 20% of most artists. Most artists started, like Jeffrey Osborne started with LTD. James Taylor started with Kool and the Gang. You get where I'm going with this. And it's, so moving on. So these record labels would have these artists sign their deals where all sound recordings belong to the record label, meaning all master sound recordings. So I'm hanging on this because when you take these composition and lyrics, whoever the source is, whether it's come from a songwriter or the artist themselves, whatever the case, someone has to come up with an arrangement or an interpretation of that to create the sound recording. And all of that can be dependent. A lot of that can be dependent on how good the song's going to sound, from the recording at the studio itself, how it's mixed, all the way down to the choice of musicians being used, background singers, and the way the melody itself is interpreted when creating this sound recording. Because you could take a sound recording and you're taking this song and you're going to record this melody. And you could take the words of this melody and say, you could sing the melody a certain way that if you sing it right, it will catch people and it will become a hit. Or you could sing it wrong. The talent has nothing to do with it. It's how it's phrased. And you can sing something like I want to be with you. You can go, I want to be with you. People might not like that interpretation or arrangement of that melody. But if you go, I want to be with you, I want to be with you, that can change where people are going to like it, versus I want to be with you. People may not like that. So that's crucial in the recording portion in the studio. That is real crucial. So the arrangement is crucial to whether people are going to like it. So, and it all boils down to the way the bass line is going, the rhythm of the bass line, the rhythm of the drums, the chord choices by the keyboard or guitar, the chord choices, all the accompaniment instruments, all that can affect whether people are going to like the song or not. So the arrangement is based on of the music is going to be based on how the musicians play it and the producer perceives the arrangement. This is where the producers come in and play. They produce it in a way that the producer's trying to get the sound recording to be recorded so it can guarantee people to like the music that you do that you're gonna record. This is why super producers have better reputations than sub producers, or because sub producers can be hit or miss. Super producers, they were making, you're talking producing Grammy Award winning hits. It's like their reputation. It's kind of like with Timbaland or the Neptunes or Quincy Jones, Teddy Riley, Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, Babyface, and all these producers that were producing, because they were determining the difference between I want to be with you. No, don't sing like that. I want to be with you, or I want to be with you. The producer wants you to sing it like that because that's going to guarantee the people like it better than I want to. Even though the artist may be, that's why you have vocal producers and music producers and all these. They say no, don't play the bass line. Don't do no do. The rhythm of the bass and even the drum selection to put it. No, I don't want that. Or that's why they choose producers like, no, I know what's going to work good for your vocals. We need to go to a studio that has a 1073 preamp with a good vocal mic, like a Newman U87. That's going to bring your voices. That's what the producers are doing. They're seeking out, does that studio have the equipment? Oh, they're booked. Let me go to this. No, they're booked. Which studio? Oh, that studio, they got a Neve console, and they got some book team time. Let me see if I can book them. And this is where, and if the producers try to have these relationships with all these different recording studios, and it's, yeah, we can book you, Quincy Jones. Oh yeah, we can book you. Come on in to Sunfire Recording Studio. They got the gear. I got this engineer. I'm gonna bring in, Matt Williams. I know he's a solid engineer, and he knows how to use the gear, and he's gonna bring that artist to that recording studio. We're gonna book it for 3 weeks. Because this is what we got from the budget. Our budget say the artist got an advance for $400,000. How much is gonna? About $100,000 to book the studio for 3 weeks or whatever. Let's book it. I know the perfect session musician. I know the perfect bass player. We're gonna fly this bass player. We're gonna get Nathan East to play the bass. We're gonna get Greg Philliganes to play keys. I'm gonna get Jonathan Parker to play guitars. I'm gonna get. Oh man, I got Norman Watson to play drums. I got all these musicians. I know they're gonna fly. When we can't get Norman Watson, he's booked. He's torn. Man, what's another drummer? This is what the producers are doing. So, and they know that a lot of times these certain musicians that are gonna play on these records are gonna know how to play the music to play exactly what the producer wants. This is the reason why the Nashville musicians work so well for so many country artists. They got a whole pocket of musicians that understand country and western music so well. They know how to interpret. They know how to interpret the play when they hire these session musicians to play on these sessions for these artists. They know exactly how these musicians are going to. They know exactly how to play to make the record work. So that's why the Nashville musician thing worked so well out of all the major cities. So moving on. So now we talked over the record. So the record label makes artists sign the contract to say we're gonna own the master, the master sound recording. Artists don't know that because a record contract, which moving on to the record contract, they would sign these point deals on record sales, and they would also sign these. So the record contract, a deal or a record contract, you would come to a deal or an agreement. That's a record deal. You came to an agreement, so you sign the contract. Now, if you you got the deal and agreement, you sign a contract, or if you're a songwriter, you sign a publishing deal, right? / producer, publishing deal or whatever. Or some artists might sign a manager deal where these managers can try to get these artists to get exposure to a record contract or whatever. I'm running out of time because I'm almost going on an hour. This is a long subject. So back in the day, they would say these 50-50 deals where an artist would get so much percentage of royalties, but there was always minus deductions under these deals, a percentage of what the record label was going to pay the artist. Well, we're only going to pay you after we get our deductions back, like packaging and free goods and all this other stuff. So there was other kind of like joint venture deals. There were now most of these, because they weren't making money on record sales anymore, they changed it from 50-50 deals with a obligation with a dependent. You would sign a contract depending on a 1 to 7 deal. Sometimes it could be, and sometimes they're exclusive, sometimes they're non-exclusive. But basically, you would sign these contracts. A recording artist could sign this contract, and it would say, okay, your current contract will say you're a work for hire for 1 to 7 albums. So it's all dependent on how well the albums are doing. If you got the first album doesn't do well, they might keep you on, float you some more advance money because you hadn't made any money, because the record hadn't made any money. So they can't keep you any money because the record didn't make no money, and it's all dependent on if it goes gold or platinum or not. And because the whole thing about this whole music industry is dependent on how well audiences like you. And some artists that get into the game, not everyone likes them. It's kind of like, I'll use an example. Colonel Abrams, I believe what you do say, what even the one say. I can't remember the words. On the president of the law. He never could, he's going to have so much of a following, but he would never, his level of success would not match someone like Luther Vandross. And there were a lot of artists like that, and sometimes that has to do with how well the record label is going to market. It's kind of like other artists, because it gets deep with these record labels. So there was different types of record contracts, and what they would do is they would give advance to artists touring support, advances for recording, and to make videos and all this other stuff. But they're going to recoup that if it's recoupable. If it's not recoupable, they either shell the artist or they drop the artist. That's different. It's too long of a video to explain all that. But anyhow, so we already talked about the sound recording and everything else. So you have two sides. There's a record label and then there's a publishing. And on the record label's interest is, it's kind of like what is the interest of the record label's is really pretty much interested in how much the record is selling, because that's the record label's bread and butter, is to recoup money that they gave back out for this artist to make money. And it's some key players involved that can be key to that, and that's why they can also get fired, because this person is making choices for the artist. It's called the A&R person, artist and repertoire. Repertoire meaning the music and everything about the artist, their repertoire, and the artists themselves. So the A&R represents the artist, and if the record that they went to the studio to make don't do well, not only they can drop the artist, they can fire the A&R person, because they caused the record label to lose money with all this money they dished out. So it's all dependent on if they really, and sometimes when the A&R brings all that money, all those records to the record label to be released, they have to feel comfortable releasing it. And your record contract as a recording artist says you don't get to make the choice whether we're going to release your music or not, because we're the one taking the risk here with all this money lost. And this is how they justify their point system, why we're only going to pay you 3 points or whatever. We're only going to give you so much percentage minus the deductions. So it's kind of like this. If you had an album and how many units They're going to manufacture, because there's manufacturing costs and everything else that they're going to deduct. Packaging and everything else. Loss, like broken records or whatever, through packaging and shipping. Damaged goods, free goods. Free goods means your promotional copies they hand to radio stations and some record stores. Promotional. That's why I said sometimes this is only for promotion only. You would see that on vinyls. So anyhow, so they would take that. So you take one CD, let's say it's $10.99 minus all the deductibles from that. So now your point system is going to be based off $7 or $8, maybe $6, and it's a percentage of that. And so it would go like this: if you got 3 points or whatever your point is for what you're going to get paid off the sales, the recording artists have to pay business managers, artist managers, road managers, lawyers, producers, and other session musicians, the engineer and all that. They have to pay all them. So that's why the advance is supposed to cover most of everything else. But a lot of artists make the mistake and say, well, what I don't spend at the recording studio, I'm just going to live off of, and not realize that, no, you better, it gets deep. But anyhow, let me move on, because I done ran over an hour. So the arrangement for this music is an interpretation based on production or the producer. And I got here the song, which is the composition / composer, composing a composition, and the songwriter, with the producer. So publishing. So you have three. Basically, the publishing company has to do a few things. Once a song is released, it needs to be registered. So the publishing company is going to register this song. They're going to deal with licensing, and they're also going to deal with collection of royalties for the songwriter. So these songs get registered, and sometimes the record label is also the publisher. So that's a double whammy there. So you have small time administrators. These are small publishers. Then you have independents. And then there's major publishers, and the major publishers are dealing with mainly, especially corporations like Sony, Warner Brothers, Universal. There's BMG, MI, and all that. So, they what they're paying in advances versus some advance, like $1 million advance come from a major publisher versus only $250 may come from an independent. Some administrators that are just administrator publishers, they don't have to pay advances at all. So there's no pay. Everyone, because record labels have pretty much collapsed, there's a lot of the independent and major publishers gone away. Now everyone's pretty much just an administrator. So the rights. So the sound recordings is dealing with the masters. They're going to come up with the physical sale of the song. So that's why I said the record labels are pretty much interested in the physical sales. The publisher companies are interested in the physical use. So if the song is selling, people are physically buying songs. That's what the record labels are, and that's what they're worried about, because that's their money. The songs how the songs are being used is what the publishing companies are worried about. So publishing companies usually give a license to record labels to use songs, meaning I'm going to license this song to a record label to come up with a sound recording. That's where the SR forms come into play. So the mechanical right license deals with the physical sales of like CDs, cassettes, vinyls, digital downloads, digital distribution, stuff like that. So that's why these songs have to be registered with an MRO, mechanical rights organization, like Harry Fox as an example. Harry Fox, if the stuff is being sold, a percentage of that goes to the mechanical organization, and the other percentage goes to the record label. Because the record label is the one that owns the sound recording, because that's what the contract says, not the artist. So the performance rights licenses gives the record label / artist, because an artist, a recording artist, is contracted to a record label. That's why they call it a recording artist. You got performing artists as well, but there's recording artists. Recording artists have contracts with recording labels. That's why, record artists or recording artists, same thing. So that's why they contract to a record label. A songwriter is usually contracted to a publishing company. So this is the reason why the PROs pay performance rights organizations, pay performance rights organizations pay publishing companies, because a performance rights license allows that sound recording to be played, to be broadcasted, or anything that has anything to play something over the speakers over that can be heard through the public, whether it's the radio, on a cruise ship, on the internet, on a cruise ship, through a jukebox, you name it. That's a performance, because it's being performed by being broadcasted. So they get a license for that. So they get a license for that. Then there's 3 other ones. Usually there's what they call a print right, which means if sheet music is printed off for that particular composition, sheet music. So you need a print right license to print sheet music for a song. And then there's sync right, which means this allow that sound recording to be synced to movies, anything visual, TV, commercials, video games, the internet like YouTube or TikTok. There's a sync right license needed. And then finally there's a grand right, which means anything being performed in theater or Broadway. So that has to be licensed to be performed in Broadway or theater or even church settings. Need grand right licenses. So your publishing company handles those licensing. And with the mechanical rights, because it's a physical sale, so whenever a sound recording master is recorded, they can mass produce it. So when they mass produce it, it can be distributed, and it can be distributed for sale. And when it's mastered, so you take for example, something that's been synced. That's why there's 2 licenses, like for a movie. Because a movie would not only for it to be heard in the movie, the music be heard in the movie as the music in the movie, but also when they make an actual DVD or Blu-ray or whatever, for to be rented, like through Netflix or whatever. So now you need a mechanical right license for that, to print it on DVD, or to be used in a soundtrack, like a movie soundtrack with all these different songs they use from different artists. You need mechanical right licenses for that. So the publishing company handles all that. That's why publishing is so crucial. And most recording artists that sign contracts, when they give up their publishing, they're giving up all that other money that song can be used in so many other places. And a lot of times the record labels will make the recording artists give up their publishing, because they want to control the licensing through publishing, especially if there's a record label. Like I said, most record labels are publishing companies too. So that's why they take control of that. So that's why a lot of times the artists, when they give up their rights, they give the masters, which means they can't make any money off the sales. They can only make money off the percentage that the record label is going to give them. You're only going to get a percentage. We're going to take 80% of the sales, but we also own the publishing, because we're going to make money for this stuff to be synced to video, TV, or whatever. So even though an artist can perform on TV, because the music is being used on TV, there's a sync right license, but also because the artist performing, there's a performance right. So the mechanical right organizations like Harry Fox and so forth is going to pay based off the sale. That's why A song has codes on it. There is what they call there's these codes. Like if you could track like for example, when we did the song Make a Move, when we did the song Make a Move, you can see it now. You used to couldn't see it. This is the ASCAP form for Make a Move. Y'all probably seen the other video that I did on how I did Make a Move. Well, the people involved with the writers and all that, you can see where I told you there was a guy named Grover, and then there was a guy named Brenda, then myself and Roberts on Make a Move. Because I did ADT was the name of the group, A Different Taste. And this is the ASCAP form. So ASCAP stands for the Association Society of Composers, Authors, and Publishers. Okay. There's also BMI and CSAC. These are PROs. So PROs, performance right organizations, are tracking the performance rights portion of these licenses. And that, like I say, anything that can be broadcasted, through radio, or anything that's broadcasted over air or whatever, PROs are listening. When it's registered with your PRO. When they registered, now they're listening. But if you don't register with the PRO, they're not listening. So it needs to be registered. So with that being said, make sure your stuff is being registered. Same thing when stuff that's going to be physically sold, whether it's digital or hard copy like a CD or whatever, it needs to be registered with an MRO. That's how you're going to get your mechanical royalties. So, too important. If you want your stuff to go to TV and commercial, you need. So when they come and say, "Hey, this song is so good, we want to use it in a movie," they're going to go to your publishing company, and a publishing company is the one that's going to say, "Yeah, we can issue a sync license to sync it to a movie, or a video game, or TV show, or commercial." And it's it's still for sale, and the artist performance. So that's where these licenses are key. That's why publishing is so huge. So the record labels, like I said, and the key thing is when artists are not songwriters, and most aren't, because their record contracts allow them not to be songwriters, because the record label is going to go to publishing companies, maybe their own publishing company, and pull they're going to pull composition / lyric / composition songs from songwriters that have a publishing deal with their record label, a publishing deal with that label, and then they'll start pulling producers. They may have a publishing deal with with a label or whatever publishing company. The producer knows how to make the song. They might be contracted to they might be an independent producer. They might have a contract with a record label as a producer with a publishing deal. So anyhow, they go to this producer and these songwriters to come up with these songs for the artists that got these recording contracts. So the recording contract says you're just a work for hire. You got a record deal to record songs for us, and we want to record these songs. We want these. So they go to producer, or whatever the case. Now, it all depends on how the contract. Sometimes the recording artists have free reign to pick any producer they want, but a lot of times these, basically the record label is going to ensure that here's your list of producers, and if the producers, which is usually a lot of times the super producers for those record labels / publishing companies, they only going to choose producers they know can guarantee hits. Like, I'm only going to get Teddy Riley or Quincy Jones, or if they're available. It's like thousands of producers that have gotten these record labels hits. So we're going to Dallas Austin or whatever, whoever these producers are, I'll Be Sure or whatever, Chucky Booker or whatever. They get these producers, and they producers say, okay, well, we're going to go to these recording studios. What budget are we working with? Well, they got a $250,000 advance. Okay, well, we can get this recording studio, and this, I'm available, and I can work with this artist, whatever, and we're going to get these and so forth. And so it really boils down to, whatever the contract says, and it really. So I done ran out of time because I'm well over time. But like I said, with these songs, once a song is made, a sound recording master is made, and it's registered, it's going to get a UPC code. This is for the mechanical portion, for things that can be physically sold, because the mechanical rights gives the record label license to print or copy, meaning you can actually manufacture songs to be sold on a medium like a CD or cassette. So they're going to get these codes. A UPC, which stands for Universal Product Code, which means they're going to attach it to the CD. So every time the CD is sold, like the case, like for example, you get this UPC as a barcode right here. Whenever this goes and being sold, this is what's tracking. So the companies that track that would be like Nielsen SoundScan. They track the UPC code, and so every song that was on our CD has what they call an ISRC code. That's the code for each individual song. Now, if the song is sold as a single, then it gets an ISRC code and a UPC code. But if it's sold as a collection of songs, like this is a collection of songs, there are 13 on, well, actually 14 on here. Then all 14 collections of songs have, each one of these have an IRSC code, and the whole thing as a whole entire package has a UPC code. So the UPC code is that's what is tracking, the UPC code. And then the song has an ID number called an IRSC code, or an ISRC code, International Standard Recording Code. This is the code for the recording. This is how they can track. And then there is what they call, this is the code, an ISWC code, which stands for International Standard of Work Code, which is the code that's also attached to the song, but this is for the purpose of the composition of the song. The music that you're listening to on a CD or whatever is just the arrangement interpretation of a song. That's why there's two parts. That's where that PA and that SR form still comes back into play. So that's why it needs to be registered not only with the MRO for the physical sales, and then you also need, and the UPC, but you also need the ISWRC code to track, so they can track. And all this is still going to be established when this stuff is registered with your PRO. And then they want to, so who's all contributed to that song? Like for example, since the song was written and arranged and all that by the main contributors for Make a Move would have been Grover, Brenda, Mark, and which is me, and Robert. We're all contributors to the song Make a Move. So we all have an IPI code, which stands for parties. It's a party information code. In other words, who's all involved. So we all get an IPI code attached to that song under those. So we all because that CD, we also get an IPR code for the entire album. That's for anybody that releases music. So your stuff, that's why it's important to have your stuff registered with an MRO and PRO. So if you're going to be an artist, you gotta definitely want to make sure that you're registering your stuff with your PRO and your MRO, and you definitely want to make sure that it's registered through Nielsen SoundScan. Well, I think it's Luminate now. And your PRO, which means you need to be affiliated with ASCAP, CSAC, or BMI. As an artist, you can only be registered with one PRO, but as a songwriter, you can be attached to ASCAP and BMI or CSAC, all three, as a songwriter. You just can't be attached to a PRO as an artist. But because the PRO is the one that's going to collect the money whenever your stuff is being performed, meaning on radio or on live on stage at a concert or whatever, or whatever the case. The MROs are going to collect your money for whenever your stuff is being sold. Most of the time, MROs, the record label, because if they own your masters, they collect the physical sales from an MRO. An MRO, so the MRO says, okay, this record, we sold, this record store sold 1,000 units. So we get our little 20% cut or whatever, and the 80% goes to the record label. So they sold 1,000 units at $14 a unit. You multiply $14,000. Well, 20% of $14,000. You do the math. You're talking 400. So we're talking $1,400 go to the MRO, and then the other 1,206. What is it? 12,600 goes to the record label. And the record label say, okay, well, because we're only going to pay you a percentage to the record, in other words, we're only going to give you a percentage of it, but we're only going to give a percentage after we take all our deductions, any advances you owe us, touring support that you owe us, and everything else we're going to deduct, mechanical, manufacturing costs, recording costs, and everything else. And most of the time, because they owe the recording artists owe the record label so many deductions and advances and all that, they'll never see a dime from that, just those 1,000 sales or whatever. And this can range whether it's 1,000 sales or 1,000,000 sales, because usually the advances and touring support is so steep. It would take that artist to at least sell a platinum to at least break even. But if they sell platinum, once you go platinum and you get certified platinum by RIAA, most of the time, then you're guaranteed to at least be able to renegotiate your point system to get more money from the label. And the label will a lot of times will probably be a little bit more lenient, flexible to work with you, because 1,000,000 sales is a big deal to a record label. 1,000,000 sales, gold is okay to a record label. If you can at least break gold, it's okay. We at least broke even. But if you can go platinum, that tells that people, more than 1,000,000 people loved your so much. 1,000,000 people, because most artists only sell about only 10% of most fans buy artist product. So you think about like, for example, let's take a song by Mariah Carey as an example. She goes platinum. 1,000,000 people, at least 1,000,000 people bought the album or the single. She goes platinum on a single or an album, right? But at least 10, 20 million people heard it. If she only sells a platinum, only out of 20 million people, if not more, heard it. That means only if you got 20%, 20 million people heard it. Maybe 100 million people, because how many people in the United States? We're not even talking about overseas, just United States. At least 100 million people heard it, and only 1,000,000 people bought it. Only 1% bought it. So not everyone buys what they hear. So that's the performance rights organizations. So that's why the key portion. So that really, I'm not even gonna talk about what artists and producers, A&R man. I was gonna talk about what artists, producers, A&R managers, publishers, and all that, engineers do. But we pretty much, so because there's so much more. But this is such a long video. So that's, let me see what else I was going to talk about. So, okay. So I'm about done, because this is an hour-and-a-half video. I'm only scratching about 25% of this whole deal, because I was, to sum it up, on this video, basically, with the new system now that you don't need, with the internet and physical downloading of music and all that, and pirating changed the game. People aren't buying CDs no more like they used to. Physical sales and stuff. So that was the record label's bread and butter. So then they changed it to 360 deals, where the artist because the artists can make their money not only because artists didn't make only their money from just a little percentage they were gonna get from record sales. They made it from being able to sell hats, t-shirts, hats, pins, memorabilia stuff, t-shirts and posters and all that. But they also got to make their money from radio station appearances, TV appearances. They also made their money from, that's what we call merchandise. But they also made their money from touring. So they would, minus all the cost of touring, after they paid the money from touring, then they could try to recoup. That's if they can sell out every concert seat, every concert ticket that's for sale. Because not everyone goes to these concerts that these recording artists, because the recording artists, and it's all dependent on the audience, what night that artist can, sometimes the artists will only be able to can book, depends on the popularity of the artists. In other words, some artists are way more popular than others, so they can get the more prime spots by these concerts. You got Ticketmasters and all these other stuff, and that's a whole different, who's controlling the Ticketmasters and everything else. And but a mainstream artist, like for example, I remember I mentioned Colonel Abe. Of course, he rest in peace, he passed away. But you have like for example, if you have Freddie Jackson trying to book a show at Radio City Hall, then you got Beyonce. Beyonce's going to get it. She's going to get the spot. So that means Freddie Jackson can't get that prime spot on a Friday or Saturday night. He might only get a Sunday night or a Monday night or Tuesday, or maybe a night that they know that they're not going to get as many people to come out on a weekday like they would on a weekend, because people work, they got to go to work. A lot of people are not going to be up to a concert 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning on a Wednesday like you would on a Friday. Most people will stay up a little bit longer on a Friday or whatever. So that's concerts and touring. That's a whole different video, and that's probably the most expensive part. So, but now that that with the internet, and now that I wrote down, now that people can self-promote themselves now without the label, because you have Reverb Nation, you got SoundCloud, there's TuneCore, Soundcast, YouTube, TikTok, and then there's other social media sites like Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter. There's so many ways you can promote yourself. You can get create your own promotional website page, like using Wix or something, or Squarespace or something like that. You can create your own web page, you create your own artist page, and you can self-promote yourself. You have links to Facebook and YouTube and TikTok and everything else, and self-promote yourself. I was going to talk about radio versus streaming some more, but so with that, record labels were forced to change their practice to 360 deals and only sign artists who's already built up a huge following, because they want to guarantee they can make money off streaming and digital downloading, because they know people aren't buying it through physical sales anymore. But it's now at the point, it's kind of like, if I've already built up a million people following, what I need a record label for? That's what you needed a record label for in the first place, is to build up a million people following, because you needed radio and video. But you don't need radio and video anymore. Because you got social media. There's so many social media sites, and I'm not even naming, like I said with YouTube, there's Twitch, and there's so many social media sites to give people exposure. People can do it without, which people putting their stuff on Spotify and Pandora and streaming and everything else to get their music heard. You really don't need a label anymore, and that's where record labels are. So a lot of record labels started seeing this, and a lot of them didn't know how to recover. And so it was easy for them to get bought out by big corporations like Sony, Warner Brothers, Universal. It was easy for them to buy them out because their artists couldn't make money. Like they couldn't make money because people weren't buying CDs through these record labels. So a lot of them say, well, for us to stay, we got the, like Capitol and Arista and Epic Records and all these. And we're talking about the ones that still had some of the most major artists under it signed to their record labels. The other ones end up just closing and shutting down. That's why a lot of record labels have disappeared. And because of people's ability to do this more, the technology gotten better, computers are so much better, computers are so much better, and with the better, you know, with the advancing of technology with DAWs and plugins and gear and access to gear, whether it's the most classic vintage expensive gear or even clones or just plugins or whatever, everyone is getting more and more affordable to just to do this at home. And because back in the day, that was another gatekeeper, was recording studios. People couldn't get into recording studios because recording studios would only cater to record labels, because they knew that record labels would give recording artists the advances to pay the record label, the record recording studios, what they wanted to charge to record. And most of the time, that's the only way you were going to get your stuff at the next level of recording, is you had to go to a recording studio. That's back in the day. You had to do that, you know. So that's why most people would just cut it. You know, if I can't do a full album, I'll at least try to pay enough to get a demo done, you know, to try to get a deal. So most people are trying to just do demos, 3-4 song demos to get them a deal. Then that way they can get a contract where they can get a $500,000 advance to actually go and make an actual album instead of just 2 or 3 songs. But now people don't really need recording studios like that anymore, because people can do this with Pro Tools or Ableton Live, Reaper, you name it, Reason, Cakewalk, you name it, all of them, and buy plugins and interfaces and whatever gear they choose to buy, and studio monitors and headphones and microphones. And people are doing this at home. It's just because recording studios were so expensive. I mean, from anywhere from $500 to almost as much as $5,000 a day. And now recording studios, because they aren't getting the clients like that with those kind of money anymore, they've either forced to change their costs. A lot of times some of them had to close because they had so much overhead costs they just couldn't afford to stay open. So a lot of them start closing, start selling gear, liquidating their gear. The other ones, just the ones that were not in debt as much, were forced to change their prices. Now was the average price $50 to $150 a day for the majors, and then some people are charging $35, $25 an hour. But other than that, most people are just bought gear and software and doing it at home. So that pretty much killed the recording studio business portion of it, because it's all. So now that's where we're at today. We're at today because everyone, and because there's no gates, it's over flooded with so many independent unknowns. It's over flooded now because anyone can upload their music to any of these, like Reverb Nation and SoundCloud. But the thing is, for the success is still based on exposure and reputation. And a lot of these, even award shows like Grammys and American Music Award and BT Awards and Soul Train Awards, are still connected to record labels and reputations like that. That's why you still don't see as many independent artists getting on the Grammys to perform. You're still seeing a lot of these that are still under contracts with record labels. But we don't know how much longer that's going to last. But that's why when you watch the Grammys award show, that's why you still see Bruno Mars or Cardi B or Nicki Minaj and all these artists like that. That's under a most of those are still under recording contract. They just have 360 deals. Or these rap artists or whatever, you know, or some of these rock bands or these alternative rock bands or whatever, or country and western art like Taylor Swift, you know, that are still, a lot of these people are still under a traditional record label contract. That's just that the way they get paid is totally different. So I'm done. It's been an hour and 35 minutes. I just wanted to, because I'm not even scratching this. It's so much to this whole thing. I hope I didn't bore people. But it's a lot. It's a lot. So I just want to throw this out. I hope this was kind of like I hope this helped some people, because I was gonna say, well, like I said, I need to do another video on if you're gonna be an independent artist, what should you do? Like I said, the caveat: register with an MRO, like Harry Fox. If you're gonna make your music and want it to be distributed, register with Nielsen SoundScans, or I think it's Luminate now. You register your stuff with your PRO. Become a member of ASCAP, BMI, or CSAC. If you're a songwriter, become a member of all three. And if you are a, let's see, what else? And definitely want to start you a separate business account, a separate artist business account over your personal bank account. Get you an LLC. So if you get into some conflicts where lawsuits might come involved, they can't nobody sue you and take your money. So get you an LLC, become a limited liability corporation. There's things like that. Start, get your stuff on, start marketing your stuff. Create an artist page. There's a lot you can do as an independent artist. But I just would say, stop listening to these people telling you how to make it in the music, because just making it in the music industry is all based on whether people like you or not, and no one can guarantee that. No one can guarantee if your song's gonna be a hit. No one can guarantee any of that. These corporations try to force these artists and producers to make music that they try to force these artists into making certain formats of styles of music they think will guarantee to get a ROI, a return on their investment, but they can't guarantee that. They can't. No one can guarantee that, because this is all based on how well people like the artist. And if people like the artist, and the artist becomes successful, then the producer's successful, which means the recording studio that they recorded at / engineers become successful. And the whole trigger, the record label becomes successful based on how well an artist is liked. And like I said, that's not guaranteed. It's just some artists are just liked and other artists are just not. And you can key, like I said, going back to what I was saying about, sometimes it boils down on how good the song is created, instrument wise. Even the phrase, remember that song, I forgot what I said. I want to be with, I want to be with you versus I want to be with you. Or, how that makes a difference. It really does. And on top of that, how record labels used to develop their artists was they would get these artists trained on, because they found out the most successful artists, not only do they sing, they dance, or they get choreography dancers that help them perform. Like, this is the reason why Janet Jackson or Michael Jackson and artists, Chris Brown, and all these artists, this is why Britney Spears was forced to get, a lot of people would, NSYNC, or these groups, like they call them boy bands, like NSYNC or Backstreet Boys or whatever, they would start doing dances, because the audiences always go crazy when you're an artist can sing and dance versus just being able to sing. Long gone are the days where you can be, very few artists can get away with just singing. Unless it's that style, it's certain class of music where they don't have to dance. But most, the most popular music, like EDM music, trap music, K-pop, dance music, music genres like that, hip hop / R&B, whatever, most of them are dancing. So it really depends on how well these artists can entertain the audience. So, and then bands are their own, because when people go to bands, the bands is based on how the band is performing. I'm talking about the musicians are playing and the singer is singing. That's his own entertainment in itself. But that's generally so that's gonna do it. So I hope this helped out. But just be careful. I just want to throw all this out because this is a lot. Thanks for watching. Y'all have a great one.